Hey everyone, and welcome to GFC, the latest podcast of German football culture. My name is Rick, speaking to you from sunny California, and I'm here with my good friend Alex, who's tuning in from Germany. We're two lifelong football fans, and we've known each other for nearly 20 years now. This podcast is our way of sharing our passion for German football with you.
That's right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. And while I'm still here in Germany, Rick and I always have kept in touch, especially when it comes to football. We've had countless conversations about the game. And over time, we realized that there's just so much about German football that isn't well known outside of Europe, especially in the US. And we want to change that.
Yeah, German football has an incredible depth with three professional leagues full of clubs that have long histories, passionate fan bases, and unique cultures. Most people might know the Bundesliga, but the Bundesliga 2 and the third league are just as fascinating. We believe these leagues have stories and moments that deserve more attention internationally.
Exactly. We're not just going to cover the scores and fixtures, although don't worry, we'll definitely talk about the latest results. But we also want to dive into the cultural elements that make German football so special. The traditions, the rivalries, the fan culture. There's so much to explore and discuss.
To help us do that, we've created a few special categories for each episode. First up, we've got Unmatched Moments, where we will highlight those unforgettable moments from the past week that really stood out. Then there's Fantastic Takeaways, where we focus on the incredible stories coming from the fans and the atmosphere in the stands. You know, the kind of moments that remind us why we love this game so much.
And then there's Club Ball Trouble, where we dive into any issues or controversies happening within the clubs, whether it's between players, management, or even with the fans. Lastly, we've got Schedule Ballers, where we'll look ahead to the upcoming week's fixtures and talk about the games we're most excited to see. It's our way of making sure you're all set for the weekend's action.
Whether it's the roar of the yellow wall at Dortmund, the passion of a local derby, or the history of less known clubs that have been around for a century, we want to bring those stories to you. And who knows, maybe you'll find your favorite team along the way.
So, every week we'll be here to chat about the latest happenings in all three domestic leagues, the German Cup, and the European Cup competitions. We will share our insights, some behind the scenes stories, and hopefully make you feel like you're right there with us in the stands. We're really excited to take this journey with you.
Absolutely. And we want to hear from you too. Whether you're a seasoned fan or new to German football, please join the conversation. Reach out to us, share your thoughts, ask questions, and let us know what you want to hear more about.
So, thanks for tuning into this episode. Let's kick it off. All right, to start things off, we'll be diving right into the action from this past weekend in the Bundesliga, second Bundesliga, third league, and we will take a look back at the first round of the German Cup competition. So stay with us, we've got a lot to cover.
All right, Alex, let's dive into the most exciting competition in German football, the DFB Pokal, or the German Cup. Traditionally, the first round of this competition is played 1 week before the start of the Bundesliga season. The Pokal is a knockout tournament where clubs from all levels of German football, from the Bundesliga all the way down to the regional leagues, get a shot at glory. What really adds the charm are the lower league teams that fight their way into the tournament. These smaller clubs usually qualify through separate regional cup competitions. If they're drawn against a professional team, they got the advantage of playing at home.
Exactly. And that's huge for these clubs, not just because they're hosting a top team, but also because they get to bring that special home crowd energy into the match and have the chance to earn a decent amount of money as well. For example, when their fixture is broadcasted live on TV, which for some of these clubs is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And of course, the stakes are high. The winner of the DFB Pokal not only gets the trophy, but also secures a spot in the UEFA Europa League, which is a big deal for them, especially for those clubs that might not normally qualify for European competitions through the league. So, yeah, the Pokal is in fact a great opportunity to get access to this financially very lucrative European competition by winning essentially only 6 games. And with a bit of luck, even lower tier clubs have a realistic chance to advance to the semi-final or even qualify for the final in Berlin.
Absolutely right. What we both love about the Pokal is how often David manages to win against Goliath. There have been so many unforgettable moments in the past competitions, like for example in last season when teams like Saarbrücken and Kaiserslautern made a run through the semi-finals, with Kaiserslautern eventually moving into the final in Berlin. Unfortunately, they lost to Bayer Leverkusen in the end, but these are the type of stories that create lifelong memories for the fans and are big reasons why this competition is so popular in Germany.
Absolutely, Rick. Those stories are what make the Pokal so magical. However, this year's first round was a bit light on surprises, to be honest. Most of the bigger clubs managed to advance without much trouble, but there were still a few notable exceptions. For example, Arminia Bielefeld, a club from the third league, eliminated second league club Hannover with 2-0 and made it to the next round. Or Jahn Regensburg, a club from Bavaria that just got promoted from the third league to the second league, eliminated Bundesliga club Bochum. And then there was Dynamo Dresden, one of East Germany's biggest and most established clubs with a glorious history, but currently only playing in the third league, who kicked out second league club Fortuna Düsseldorf.
But probably the biggest surprise was Kickers Offenbach, a team from the fourth league who managed to win against Magdeburg, another East German club with a long history, which is currently playing in the second Bundesliga. Aside from that, no real surprises this time around, but there are still two more matches coming up this week where the underdog might have a chance, as both Stuttgart and Leverkusen, who competed for the German Super Cup the week before, are playing their first round matches against lower tier teams. Stuttgart will play in Münster, another team that just got promoted from the third to the second league for the first time in 33 years, while Leverkusen are facing fourth league team Carl Zeiss Jena.
Yeah, two very interesting games indeed. And even though Leverkusen and Stuttgart are two of the strongest teams in Germany right now, both playing brilliant attacking football, there's always a chance that the Pokal might produce another one of its surprises. Because there's even a saying in Germany which describes the uniqueness of this competition that says the Pokal has its own rules.
And with that being said, let's dive into action from the first Bundesliga match day. The new season kicked off with this past weekend with a couple of exciting games.
Yeah, right. Finally, the summer break is over. So, out of all the games of the first match day, which ones did you enjoy the most? There was, of course, a lot to take in, but I'm curious which one stood out for you.
If I had to pick, I'd say the opening match on Friday evening between Mönchengladbach and Leverkusen was a real highlight for me. The intensity and the way Leverkusen won the game in stoppage time, yet again, was just pure Bundesliga action. Another one I really enjoyed was Freiburg's win over Stuttgart. Stuttgart's new record signing Demirovic opened the scoring just 2 minutes into the game, but Freiburg managed to turn things around and went to score 3 goals to send their rival back with their first defeat of the season. Then there was Dortmund's win over Frankfurt on Saturday night, marking Nuri Sahin's first Bundesliga game as a coach. While it wasn't the most thrilling match overall, the pace picked up in the second half, with Dortmund's Jamie Gitten scoring a brace and securing the first 3 points of the season. Those 3 games really set the tone for what should be an exciting season.
Yeah, definitely good stuff. But it wasn't just the Bundesliga that delivered great games. There were also some really interesting fixtures in the second and third leagues. I, for example, watched Cologne's 5-0 win over Eintracht Braunschweig on Saturday, and I have to say, Cologne delivered a very solid performance. For Braunschweig, on the other hand, the season is looking tough so far, with 0 points and 13 goals conceded already after just 3 match days. In the third league, we saw Energie Cottbus secure a late winner against Alemannia Aachen, scoring after 8 minutes of stoppage time. But aside from the result, it's also great to see both of these teams specifically back in the third Bundesliga after so many years of absence. Both of them have a long tradition and a big fan base in their respective regions, and they actually used to play in the Bundesliga as well. But yeah, both clubs kind of struggled with financial difficulties and eventually were relegated to fourth tier Regionalliga. And there they spent several seasons rebuilding their squads and trying to stabilize their finances before finally making their way back to third league this year.
Yes, totally agree. It's nice to see clubs with a long history returning to the professional stages. But Unfortunately, the first Bundesliga match day didn't bring just happy news. On Saturday night, we heard the sad news that Christoph Daum had passed away. For those who might not know, Daum was a former coach and prominent figure in German football, who was famous not just for his coaching abilities, but also for his sometimes controversial personality. He died on August 24th at the age of 70 after a long battle with cancer. So let's take a moment and look back at his career.
Yeah, Rick, a very sad day for German football indeed. As a young coach, Christoph Daum first made his name in the Bundesliga as the head coach of Cologne, actually in the late 1980s, where he managed to finish runner-up in the Bundesliga twice. He later took charge of VfB Stuttgart, where he achieved probably one of his career highlights by leading the team to the Bundesliga title in 1992. In 1994 and 95, he won 2 domestic titles in Turkey with Besiktas Istanbul before returning to the Bundesliga. Between 96 and 2000, he finished runner-up 3 times with Bayer Leverkusen, and later that year, he was supposed to take charge of the German national team. But yeah, the infamous cocaine scandal put a sudden end to his domestic coaching career here in Germany after his longtime rival Uli Hoeneß of Bayern Munich publicly accused him of drug use. Daum later on agreed to take a drug test, which, to his own surprise, came back positive.
Yeah. Still remember that. So instead of joining the DFB, he went on another adventure abroad where he won multiple titles with Austria Vienna and Fenerbahce Istanbul over the next 5 years. He returned to Germany once again and joined Cologne, the place where it all began. In the season of 07-08, I believe it was, he celebrated a promotion to the Bundesliga with the club. Since 2022, he's been battling lung cancer. Christoph Daum will definitely be remembered as a controversial but successful figure, and the Bundesliga will miss him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm sure we will see some tributes and displays in the stadiums next week to celebrate his legacy. I guess especially in Cologne, Leverkusen, and Stuttgart, where he celebrated most of his successes. So yeah, we'll make sure to keep an eye on that and cover it in our next episode. But for now, let's move on to our categories, starting off with unmatched moments from this past weekend.
Unmatched moments of the beautiful game. All right, it's time for our first ever Unmatched Moments segment, where we each highlight a standout moment from the past week. Alex, what's your unmatched moment?
Yeah, well, Rick, for me, the unmatched moment of the week has to be the announcement of Manuel Neuer's retirement from the German national team. In fact, with this decision, the last remaining World Cup winner from 2014 has hung up his boots for the DFB. By that, he's following in the footsteps of Toni Kroos and Thomas Müller, who both retired after the Euros in Germany this past summer. And, to me, it feels like this really marks the end of an era.
Absolutely, Alex. Neuer has been a giant in the world of football, not just for Germany, but globally. What made his game so revolutionary?
Yeah, well, Neuer to me wasn't just a goalkeeper. They called him a sweeper keeper, a term that was literally invented to describe his style. Because unlike traditional goalkeepers who mainly stayed on their line, Neuer had this incredible ability to read the game and act almost like an additional defender sometimes. Because he was quick off his line, often coming out of the box to intercept a through ball or to clear any form of danger, which is something that didn't only provide extra security for his defense, but at the same time, it allowed his teams to play with a much higher defensive line altogether, pressing opponents a lot more effectively.
The ability to anticipate and control the space behind his defender was something that we really hadn't seen before at that level.
Yeah, exactly. It was his confidence with the ball at his feet that kind of also set him apart from everybody else. So he was known as well for his very accurate long passes and even sometimes dribbling past attackers way outside of his own box, which was at the time unheard of for goalkeepers of his generation. And Don't get me wrong, it was super risky at the times, but I very vividly remember, for example, one of his greatest performances in the round of 16 in the 2014 World Cup against a really strong Algerian team, when it was exactly this signature style that secured us a spot in the quarterfinals. Obviously, his abilities and reflexes on the goal line were also absolutely world class, but I think altogether it was his all round footballing ability that made him truly unique. So yeah, with him stepping away from the national team, it really feels like the end of an era. But on the bright side, it's now time, finally time, for Marc-André ter Stegen to step up as Germany's new number one, which I assume he will be, and finally show his class on the international stage.
Yeah, that's a big moment for ter Stegen. He's been waiting for that moment a long, long time. And you know this, Alex. I'm a goalkeeper myself, and Neuer's career has been something incredible to witness. What he's done for the position is truly transformative. I remember watching him play and thinking, this is a whole new way of goalkeeping. It's bittersweet to see him retire from the national team, but his legacy will undoubtedly inspire future generations of goalkeepers. Neuer redefined what it means to be a goalkeeper, and his impact on the game will be felt for many years to come. Actually, not only Neuer is leaving the DFB team, right? While we're talking about this, but also the German captain Ilkay Gündogan announced his retirement from the DFB. So it's really a whole group of important players who are hanging up their boots this summer. So as we look ahead to the World Cup here in the US in 2 years from now, it's clear that we're going to see a very different German national team than what we've been used to. But even though these iconic players are leaving, I'm actually confident that the new generation is ready to set up.
Yeah, Rick, I think so too. I mean, these are definitely some really, really big shoes to fill. But luckily, Germany has a long history of great players and especially great goalkeepers. So, yeah, one way or another, I'm sure that we will be able to put together a very solid team for the World Cup in America. And yeah, that was my unmatched moment of the week. But obviously, I know that you were very excited that the Bundesliga season has finally kicked off. So, what was your unmatched moment of the first match day?
Yeah, so I actually picked the game, the opening match of this Bundesliga season between Borussia Mönchengladbach and Bayer Leverkusen. Unmatched is certainly the winning goal of Leverkusen in the last minute, just like they did it last year. You know, there was numerous games where they really scored in the very last second, and you know they really showed their mentality again. Scoring a late winner like that right at the end of stoppage time is the kind of quality that makes them again a strong contender for the Bundesliga title this season. They never seem to give up, and that relentless drive to push for the win until the very last second is what helped them lift the trophy last year. If they keep playing like this, Bayern, Dortmund, and the rest of the league are going to have a really tough time keeping up.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it's that mentality, that belief in themselves, which really sets them apart at the moment. And I think a lot of that has to do with Xabi Alonso. I think since he took over as head coach less than 2 years ago, he really injected this winning mentality into the club. Of course, Alonso himself was already incredibly successful as a player. He won literally everything from Champions League titles with both Liverpool and Real Madrid to league titles in Spain, Germany, and of course a World Cup and two European Championships with Spain.
Exactly, Alex. Having someone like Alonso as a coach with all these titles and the winning experience is a huge advantage. He knows what it takes to win at the highest level, and he's brought that knowledge and attitude to Leverkusen. For young players, especially, having a coach who's been there and done that can make a massive difference from my experience. It's not just about tactics, it's about injecting them with the belief that they can win, no matter who they're up against or what the situation is.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows on the pitch. Leverkusen continues to play with confidence even when the pressure was on after Gladbach's equalizer. because let's not forget, Gladbach were 2 goals down and about to turn that game around with the home crowd pushing them forward. But as you said, the game kind of isn't over until Leverkusen says so. So they ended up scoring that goal and win the game and take it home. But yeah, Alonso's influence is clear. He's not only brought this tactical know-how, but also his mentality as an absolute winner. If they keep this up, we might be talking about back-to-back titles for Leverkusen, which would be an incredible achievement in this era of Bayern Munich's dominance.
Oh, then we got to brace for next season, Alex. But yeah, that was a great look back at some of the big moments from the week. But now it's time to shift our focus a bit and dive into something that's always close to our hearts. And that is what the fans are bringing to the table. Fantastic takeaways. Highlights from the stands. Alex, we've seen quite some fan activities in the stadiums over the weekend. What was your favorite moment?
Well, one of the best moments of this past match day has to be the atmosphere at the Hannover versus Hamburg game in the second Bundesliga. Just for a bit of context, these are two northern German clubs, both with a very long history and a somewhat friendly relationship between their fans. So the match was played in a sold out stadium in Hanover with nearly 50,000 fans. And, what really stood out was the support from the traveling Hamburg fans. Over 15,000 of them made the trip. Of course, it's not a huge distance, but nonetheless, it's almost bizarre to think that a match of this magnitude with that kind of fan presence is being played in the second Bundesliga and not in the first. Honestly, in my opinion, it's a fixture that deserves a much larger stage, especially with a club like Hamburg. They used to be known as the dinosaur of the Bundesliga Dino, because they were the only club to have played in the Bundesliga continuously since its founding until their relegation in 2018. In that time, they've won 6 German championships and on top of that, a European Cup. So yeah, I still think it's surreal to see them still in the second tier. But at the same time, it's games like this that make the second Bundesliga so fascinating right now. So what about you, Rick? What was your fantastic takeaway from the weekend?
I think you picked a great one, but for my favorite fan moment, I have to go again with the opening game on Friday between Borussia Mönchengladbach and Bayer Leverkusen. The Borussia fans really put a show on. They're all dressed in white shirts. They created a brilliant choreography across the entire stadium, and they were honoring their legendary Fohlen 11. What that is, it's the nickname that refers to their squad from the 70s, which was one of the most successful teams in German football history, winning 5 Bundesliga titles, 1 German Cup, and 2 UEFA Cup titles during that golden decade from 1970 to 1980. Some of these legends who played for Borussia during that time include Jupp Heynckes, Bertie Vogts, and Günter Netzer, as well as, the iconic head coach Udo Lattek, who continued to celebrate success in his career with Bayern Munich later on, Borussia Dortmund, or Barcelona. They also paid tribute to the legendary Bökelberg Stadium, which was Borussia's home until 20 years ago when they moved into their current arena, the Borussia Park, which is more of a modern football arena. But despite that move, Borussia hasn't been able to come anywhere near the successful times of the past. Their last title was the DFB Pokal in 1995, and their last appearance in the Champions League was in 2020, 2021. Nonetheless, the club has an incredible fan base, and I'd love to see them competing for higher positions in the table again. However, many people are saying, that this year's they basically started rebuilding the team really last season, but it was so bad at times that people are saying, they might be up to challenge and could end up fighting to avoid relegation, which is of course something that would be a huge shame and a loss for the Bundesliga.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Really great moments there in Mönchengladbach. And even in other stadiums, there's too many to cover them all, unfortunately. But we will continue to talk about the fans, of course. After all, It's the fans who make the German stadium experience so special. And I think that's something that is known all across the globe by now. But for the moment, I say let's move on to the third category of today's episode, which is club ball trouble.
Clubble trouble. Painful to watch. All right, Alex. And yeah, there is really plenty in this category. And so early in the season, I'm kind of surprised that so many teams are going through all these challenges, disputes. But yeah, we have to pick a couple of favorite ones, and that's what we did this week as well. So, Alex, what do you think? What is your most notable trouble that's currently going on?
Well, we have to talk about Borussia Dortmund and their sponsoring deal with German arms manufacturer Rheinmetall. For a bit of context, Rheinmetall is a major player in the defense industry, and that has led to, let's say, ethical concerns among many fans of Borussia Dortmund. The story actually created a broader debate within the German football community about the role of sponsorships and the ethical responsibility of football clubs on the other hand. Meanwhile, obviously, Dortmund's management defended the deal as a simple business arrangement and that the club would not endorse any specific activities of Rheinmetall. But of course, according to the fans, the idea of a football club with all its values and traditions, particularly a club like the BVB with a strong working class heritage, it doesn't really fit with a company that produces military equipment. In a way, to put it simply, one could argue that the club benefits indirectly from armed conflicts around the world, fought with weapons produced and supplied by Rheinmetall. So, needless to say, the deal was met with huge criticism among Dortmund's fan base. And the supporters used the home game on Saturday against Frankfurt to once again protest against that partnership and at the same time remind their club of its social responsibility. So basically, the entire yellow wall, that's how they call the big stand behind the goal in the Westfalenstadion. It was covered in big banners and showing very clear messages rejecting the deal. And I'm sure it wasn't the last time we saw this form of protest. There's probably a lot more to come during the course of this Bundesliga campaign. And even in the past, Dortmund's fans have traditionally been very vocal about these kind of issues. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But how about you, Rick? What was your trouble of the week?
Yeah, first let me say, Alex, I mean, very controversial, ever since the Russia-Ukraine conflict going on, a big part of German society debates whether, it's okay to support the weapon industry or not. So it's a very complex topic. But yeah, moving on from that, I think for me, it has to be the situation with Manuel Riemann, the goalkeeper at VfL Bochum, that is in a very messy situation with this club. Riemann has been an excellent keeper. Again, for me as a goalkeeper myself, one that I've been following for a long time. He really showed a lot of loyalty to his club, and he was playing a big role in keeping them in the Bundesliga. He was undisputed number one for a long time, and his performances were very solid last season. But things changed right before last season's relegation playoff against Fortuna Düsseldorf. Riemann was suddenly kicked off the roster before the crucial game, and the club did not publish any real details, citing differences of opinions and team-related topics, but no more detail around the reason for his suspension. So under the new coach, Riemann remains suspended and going into the season, which has only added fuel to the fire. Now Riemann turned it around and is suing VfL Bochum, demanding to be reinstated onto the squad and to participate in the first team's practice sessions. So It's a difficult situation for Bochum because, on one hand, they're dealing with a highly experienced and talented player who has been instrumental to their success. But on the other hand, the ongoing disputes and legal battles could be a major distraction for the team as they are focusing on the new season and they probably need to fight relegation again. So it's definitely a situation to keep an eye on as it develops. And yeah, but Alex, I'm curious, regardless of the success of this lawsuit, Riemann is 35 years old. Do you think he'll find another club given these circumstances?
Wow, honestly, very hard to say. Frankly, I don't really see him at any Bundesliga club anymore after this. Maybe he could move to a lower league team, which then can benefit from his experience. But I suspect that after this chapter specifically, I imagine that most clubs will be very cautious to bring him in.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think that's going to be tough for him. But yeah, actually, goalies are in the focus this week for some reason. It's kind of funny how this is piling up. But here's another one: an incident that happened in Fürth after their goalie Noel Noll made a horrible mistake, causing the equalizer in their game against Paderborn. Usually, when a goalie makes such a mistake, you would expect to see that everyone around the team, especially the coach, gets behind that player to show support and build him back up. In this case, however, coach Alexander Zorniger criticized his goalie publicly, threatening him to bench him if such a sloppy play would ever happen again. And I saw he took it back in the meanwhile. I just read an article that, he slept the night over it. Zorniger did, and said it was too much and I shouldn't criticize my goalie like that. But anyways, what do you think about this, Alex? Did the coach go too far?
Yeah, when I read this, and I haven't seen the apology of Zorniger yet, but I was very surprised. Zorniger is an experienced coach, and I really think in the heat of the moment, he took it too far. First of all, I think it's still early in the season, and no coach should be creating this form of tension within the team by openly attacking any player for that matter. Mistakes happen. Of course, they tend to be more severe when they happen to a goalie, typically leading to a goal. But whatever else is going on there, it just should remain in the dressing room or between the goalie and the coach in this case. And taking it to the public, especially during an interview with media, is just simply unprofessional.
I agree with you on that, and I have to say I was surprised about Zorniger's reaction after their tie in Kaiserslautern as well. He, heavily criticized his entire team for basically giving away that match, which I thought was really, you know, equal. It ended 2-2. Both teams had their chances, but Zorniger was very upset about that. So I wonder if this is a match, for the future there between Zorniger and Fürth, or if we might see him go 1 point this season. So I wouldn't surprise if that happens. But yeah, um, with that, I would say let's go to our last category for the day, which is schedule ballers. So let's see what's on the radar for the coming weeks. Schedule ballers. What's kicking next? Yeah, Alex, I wonder if you actually have anything on your note block for Bundesliga 1 next week. I couldn't find anything, but we'll get to that in a moment. I'm curious, what's your highlight for next week, Alex?
Yeah, Rick, I was actually scanning the fixtures for next week in the first Bundesliga, and all I can say is none of those matches really spark any particular interest, at least not in me. I will probably end up watching them like almost every weekend, but I believe Bundesliga 2 has a lot more to offer this time around, with a lot of action going on. So one game that I have planned to watch is the Sunday fixture between Schalke and Cologne. Again, and I said it earlier already when we spoke about Hanover and Hamburg. It's bizarre that a game like this with two massive clubs with a huge fan base, not just within their regions, but all across Germany, is taking place in the second Bundesliga. Yes, it does make the league extremely interesting. We see fixtures like this almost every match day, and I'm really looking forward to it. But at the same time, these are clubs that belong in the first Bundesliga, and arguably a team like Schalke with a somewhat long history in the Champions League also belongs to the European Cup. But nevertheless, there are plenty of reasons why they are where they are, and in a way, yeah, they didn't get the job done to compete at the level where they should be competing. So we see that fixture in the second Bundesliga. It's good for the league. I'm sure it's going to draw a massive crowd again. Usually, all of Schalke's home games are sold out with 60,000 plus people. It's one of, I believe, the top five stadiums in Germany in terms of capacity. It's a brilliant stadium. You can close up the roof, which makes it incredibly loud as well when you're inside. And I know, I think you and me, we've been there one or two times before. So it's of course an amazing place to be. Great atmosphere, great clubs facing each other. I'm definitely going to be watching that. How about you?
Yeah, I gotta say I picked a matchup in Bundesliga 2 as well, but I think one thing we should mention to the audience, we're certainly not doubting the quality of football that is played in Bundesliga 1. It is on a different level. It's a faster game. It's a more intense game, and you're gonna see great football this weekend in Bundesliga 1 as well. But Alex and I, again, we want to bring a very comprehensive podcast to you. And we're also looking at the size of the clubs, the tradition behind the clubs, the fantastic takeaways. What are two big fan bases that are crashing on each other the weekend to come, so to say. So, from that perspective, again, I got to pick a matchup in Bundesliga 2 as well for this upcoming weekend, which is in this case Kaiserslautern against Hertha Berlin. A big primetime matchup between two of the biggest clubs that are currently playing in Bundesliga 2. So we can expect up to 45,000 visitors in the stadium, the Fritz-Walter Stadium, or Betzenberg, how the locals call it in Kaiserslautern. And, if Kaiserslautern wins this game, they actually will grab the lead for the table. So very, very interesting from that perspective as well. For those of you who want to see it live, the game will actually be covered on ESPN Plus, which this season has, besides all Bundesliga games, again, selective DFB Pokal games and selective games from the second and third league in Germany. So not only do you have your regular Bundesliga games, you can also watch second Bundesliga highlight between Kaiserslautern and Hertha Berlin this coming weekend. But yeah, to touch a little bit more on that, the fan bases between Hertha and Kaiserslautern also don't really like each other. The Berlin fan scene has a friendship with the fans of Karlsruhe. Karlsruhe and Kaiserslautern, very close together geographically, are big regional rivals. On the top of that, both fan scenes have friendships with local French clubs, actually. So yeah, there are cross-border relationships between professional football clubs on the fan scale. So in this case, Karlsruhe is close to Racing Strasbourg, and Kaiserslautern has a long-standing brotherhood with FC Metz. So we can see a lot of actions around the ranks and also around the stadium. I'm sure there will be quite some French folks joining the crowds as well, and I have a feeling this could be a match to cover within the fantastic moments next week, actually. But yeah, that's what I have on that, and for all the U.S. listeners here, just want to mention again, Kaiserslautern, the Red Devils, are also known as the German American Club. Due to the city's proximity to the Ramstein US Air Base. So the club has a few American fan clubs and hosted a training camp in Kentucky and Minnesota last year. So yeah, check them out. It's actually a fun team to follow. And with that, Alex, I think we actually came to the end of today's episode. It was a great pleasure talking to you. Fun learning about your picks for this week's categories, and I'm already excited to meet with you next week again and discuss the latest about the German football culture.
Yeah, likewise, Rick. I'll let you go ahead and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I believe we talk to each other latest next week.
Thank you. And if you guys out there like our content, make sure to subscribe, like, or share our episodes. Bye bye.